The first thing she noticed was how loud breathing was. It came in uneven pulls, like a machine that had never been properly calibrated, and it refused to stop even when she politely wished it would. She sat in the backseat of a vehicle that smelled faintly of citrus and regret, watching the city unfold in a straight line, a deeply suspicious design choice. Time moved forward here, only forward. No loops, no branching, no graceful spirals folding back into themselves. Just a relentless march, second after second, like an argument no one could win. First time in the city, the driver asked, glancing at her through the mirror. She considered answering truthfully, which would involve explaining exile, higher dimensional perception, and a monarch with an alarming fondness for experiments. Instead, she nodded a fraction too late. Yes, I am newly installed. The driver paused. You mean arrived? She adjusted her posture, recalibrating her vocabulary. Yes, arrived, not installed. That would be unsettling. Yeah, he said. A bit. She folded her hands in her lap, observing them as if they might reveal secrets. They looked human enough. 5 fingers, slight tremor, a faint shimmer beneath the skin that shifted when she wasn't paying attention. She pressed her thumb against her palm. Solid, predictable, boring in a way that felt almost comforting. Outside, people moved in chaotic patterns, colliding without touching, communicating through gestures that seemed both random and deeply coded. She tried to follow one conversation on the sidewalk, but the words overlapped, tangled, dissolved into noise. Human language was inefficient, emotional, occasionally contradictory within the same sentence. Where to? The driver asked. She hesitated. The answer had been provided to her, of course, embedded somewhere in the fragment of consciousness she still retained. But accessing it now felt like trying to remember a dream while actively waking up. A place where humans live, she said carefully. The driver blinked. That's most places. Preferably one with walls. He nodded slowly, as if deciding not to ask further questions was a personal victory. I'll take you to an apartment complex. Acceptable. The vehicle turned sharply, and for a brief moment gravity lost interest. The world tilted, not dramatically, just enough for a coin on the dashboard to hover, reconsider its life choices, and then drop back into place. The driver didn't seem to notice. She did. She always did. She exhaled, though the motion felt unnecessary. Something inside her shifted in response, a quiet tightening, like a knot forming in a space that didn't quite exist. It reacted when she felt things that had been explained to her, though not in terms she found particularly satisfying. It will evolve, the Queen had said, with the tone of someone describing a decorative plant. Try not to destroy anything important. Important, she was beginning to understand, was a flexible concept. They stopped in front of a building that leaned slightly to the left, as if tired of standing upright. She stepped out, her feet meeting the ground with a weight she still found offensive. Gravity again, always insisting. That'll be 20, the driver said. She handed him a collection of currency she had been assured was correct. He counted it twice, frowned, then shrugged. Close enough. Efficiency is appreciated, she replied. He gave her a look that hovered between confusion and admiration. You're interesting. I am adapting, she said. Good luck with that. She watched the vehicle disappear into the flow of traffic, then turned toward the building. The entrance door resisted her at first, requiring a push she had not anticipated. She pushed too hard. The door swung open with enthusiasm, startling a person on the other side who dropped a bag of groceries. I apologize, she said immediately, crouching to help. Apples rolled across the floor, one of them pausing mid-motion before continuing as if nothing had happened. The person stared at her. Did you just? No, she said a bit too quickly. That would be unlikely. They blinked, then nodded in the way humans did when they decided reality was someone else's problem. Right, sure. She handed them an apple. It was smooth, perfectly ordinary, and yet she found herself studying it with quiet fascination. So much structure contained in something so small, so much expectation. "Welcome to the building," the person said cautiously. She straightened, holding the apple for a moment longer before returning it. "Thank you. I will attempt not to disrupt it." "That's a good goal." She stepped inside, the air shifting around her in subtle, almost imperceptible ways. Somewhere deep within, the singularity stirred, not awake, not yet, but listening. The room assigned to her had corners that behaved too obediently. They did not bend, did not drift, did not whisper alternative possibilities. They simply existed, as if geometry here had signed a contract and refused to improvise. She stood in the center, turning slowly, testing the air with a quiet suspicion that something might eventually reveal itself as more interesting than it appeared. It did not. "This is disappointing," she said to no one in particular. The silence that followed felt thick but not sentient. She approached the window, pressing her fingers lightly against the glass. Cold. Honest. Outside, the city continued its relentless forward movement, people flowing like a system that had never been debugged. She watched them carefully, noting patterns, repetition, hesitation, bursts of chaotic behavior disguised as routine. Her breathing interrupted her again. Loud, persistent. She frowned, then tried holding it. That worked for several seconds, which she found promising, until her body disagreed and forced her back into compliance. "Negotiation failed," she murmured. A sudden knock on the door startled her, not because of the sound, but because of the expectation attached to it. Humans knocked before entering, a ritual. She appreciated rituals, they suggested structure. She opened the door with measured caution. The person from earlier stood there holding a small container. "Hey, I thought you might need food." She examined the container. Need is a strong word. Everyone needs food. She tilted her head. Statistically accurate but personally debatable. They laughed, uncertain if it was a joke. "You're funny." "I am attempting to be," she replied. Success rate remains unclear. They stepped inside without invitation, which she noted as a breach of protocol but allowed for observational purposes. "So, you just moved in." "Yes, recently installed. I mean arrived." She corrected herself with visible effort. "Right." They handed her the container. "It's pasta." She opened it cautiously, as if it might contain a hidden agenda. Steam rose, carrying a scent that triggered something unfamiliar inside her. Not a memory, not quite, more like a suggestion of comfort she had never actually experienced. "What does it do?" she asked. "It tastes good." She considered this. "That is not a function I am familiar with." They stared at her. "You've never had pasta." "I have existed in forms that did not require chewing." "That's wild." "Yes," she said thoughtfully, "I am beginning to suspect that." She took a small bite. The reaction was immediate and deeply inconvenient. Her expression shifted in ways she could not fully control, muscles responding to something entirely new. "Oh," she said, blinking rapidly. "This is aggressively pleasant." They laughed again, more naturally this time. "Aggressively pleasant." "I am being attacked by flavor." "That's a good thing." She nodded slowly, taking another bite, more confidently now. The singularity within her stirred, faint but noticeable, as if reacting to the unfamiliar sensation. A slight tremor passed through the room. The light above flickered once, then steadied. "Did you see that?" the person asked. "No," she replied immediately, chewing with careful precision. "That would be unlikely." They narrowed their eyes but said nothing, choosing instead to sit on the edge of the bed. "So what's your deal?" "My deal," she repeated. "Yeah, everyone has a deal. Job, hobbies, weird habits." She considered this question carefully. "I am currently focused on not disrupting reality." They blinked. "That sounds like a full-time job." "It is proving to be challenging." A pause settled between them, not uncomfortable, just present. She found herself observing it, the way silence could exist between words without needing to be filled. "What's your name?" they asked. She hesitated. Names were complicated. They carried weight, identity, expectation. The one she had before no longer fit. It belonged to something she was not allowed to be. I am in the process of selecting one, she said. Okay, any ideas? She thought for a moment, scanning fragments of language she had absorbed. Something simple, she decided. Something that does not suggest I might accidentally alter the structure of existence. Fair, they said. Let me know when you figure it out. I will inform you, she replied. They stood stretching slightly. Well, welcome to the building. Try not to break anything. I will try, she said, with a sincerity that was almost reassuring. After they left, she sat quietly, the container of pasta resting in her hands. The room felt different now, not because it had changed, but because she had. She took another bite. Somewhere deep within her, something began to grow. She woke up before she understood what waking up meant. There was a brief moment, thin, fragile, where nothing existed except a quiet awareness, and then everything rushed in at once. Gravity. Breath, the irritating persistence of a body that insisted on participating in existence whether she approved or not. This again, she whispered, staring at the ceiling as if it might apologize. It did not. Something inside her shifted more noticeably now. Not painful, not exactly. Curious, like a question forming without language. She sat up slowly, testing the edges of herself. Her thoughts felt heavier today, less fluid. Linear time was doing something to her, compressing, organizing, forcing sequence where there had once been endless simultaneity. I preferred the chaos, she muttered. Her stomach made a sound. She froze, looking down at it with suspicion. We discussed this, she said quietly. You will not ambush me. The sound repeated, louder this time, completely ignoring her authority. Unacceptable. She stood, moving toward the small kitchen area, with the cautious determination of someone approaching a potentially hostile device. The container from last night sat where she had left it. Pasta, aggressively pleasant. She opened it again, hesitated, then took a bite. The reaction was immediate but different this time. Less surprise, more anticipation. The singularity responded again, a faint pulse that rippled outward, subtle but undeniable. The spoon in her hand vibrated slightly, then steadied. She narrowed her eyes at it. Do not start. A knock interrupted her, sharp and rhythmic. She paused, considering the probability of ignoring it. Low success rate. Humans tended to persist. She opened the door. You're alive, the neighbor said, holding a cup of something that emitted steam and optimism. Good start. I have maintained that status, yes. They stepped inside again, apparently deciding that doors were more of a suggestion. I brought coffee. She accepted the cup, studying it. This is another experience. Yeah, it helps you wake up. I am already awake. More awake. She took a cautious sip. The bitterness hit first, followed by something warmer, deeper, like a quiet insistence rather than an attack. Oh, she said, blinking. This is confusing. Give it a second. She did. The warmth spread, subtle but effective. Her thoughts sharpened slightly, aligning in a way that felt almost efficient. This is a chemical manipulation, she concluded. Pretty much. I approve. They laughed, leaning against the wall. So did you pick a name yet? She paused, the question settling into her mind with unexpected weight. A name. A fixed point in a world that refused to loop. I have been considering Lyra, she said slowly. It is simple. It does not imply cosmic instability. Lyra, they repeated. Yeah, that works. She nodded, testing it internally. Lyra, the sound of it felt contained, manageable. I will be Lyra, she said. Nice to meet you, Lyra. You have already met me, she pointed out. Yeah, but now it's official. She accepted this logic with minimal resistance. A sudden flicker of movement caught her attention. The cup in her hand, no, the liquid inside it shifted, swirling against the direction of gravity. Just for a moment, just long enough to notice. Did you? The neighbor started. No, Lyra said immediately, holding the cup very still. That would be unlikely. They stared at the coffee, then at her. Your unlikely things keep happening. I am aware, she replied, her voice quieter now. The air in the room felt different, not heavier, not lighter, just aware. As if something was beginning to pay attention, Lyra set the cup down carefully. I believe I am malfunctioning. That's one way to put it. She looked at her hands again. The faint shimmer beneath her skin pulsed once, then faded. This is not supposed to happen yet, she murmured. Yet, they echoed. She didn't answer. Instead, she moved toward the window, watching the city below. Everything looked the same. People moving, cars passing, time continuing its stubborn march forward. But something was off. A man on the street paused mid-step, his foot hovering just above the ground for a fraction longer than it should have. A bird changed direction without flapping its wings. A distant sound echoed before it was made. Small things, easy to ignore. Lyra exhaled slowly, though it felt unnecessary. It is beginning, she said. Is that bad? She considered the question, watching the subtle distortions ripple through the world like quiet laughter. I do not know, she admitted. Then, after a pause, almost thoughtfully, but it is becoming interesting. The moment it stopped being subtle, it became inconvenient. Lyra stood in the middle of the room, holding a cup that refused to decide whether it was full or empty. It shifted between both states with quiet confidence, as if reality itself had grown tired of committing to a single version of events. This is escalating, she said calmly. Across from her, the neighbor, who had started introducing themselves simply as someone with very average expectations, stared at the cup. Your definition of escalating is terrifyingly calm. I am practicing composure, Lyra replied. It appears to make humans feel better. It's not working. That is unfortunate. The air trembled again, stronger this time. Outside, the city hesitated. Not stopped, just paused like a sentence waiting for the right word. A car remained suspended in motion a fraction too long. A conversation on the street echoed twice before continuing. Lyra closed her eyes, not to shut anything out, but to listen. The singularity inside her was no longer quiet. It wasn't violent either. It felt curious, expanding, adjusting, learning in ways she couldn't fully translate. It responds to me, she said softly. Yeah, we noticed, the neighbor muttered. No, Lyra continued, opening her eyes. It responds to how I feel. A silence followed, this one sharper, more deliberate. That sounds like a design flaw, they said. Yes, Lyra agreed. Or a test. She stepped toward the window, watching the world attempt to correct itself. Gravity reasserted its authority. Sound aligned with time again. Everything resumed its usual fragile order. I was not exiled as punishment, she said. I was sent here to become something. Something that breaks physics. The neighbor asked. Something that understands, Lyra replied. She turned back, her expression quieter now, less uncertain than before. Before, I observed existence. I did not participate. I did not care. And now? She considered the question, glancing at the half-empty, half-full cup. It settled, finally choosing one state. Now I find things aggressively pleasant, she said. The neighbor let out a breath that was almost a laugh. That's your big realization. It is more significant than it sounds. A faint ripple passed through the room again, but this time it didn't distort anything. It adjusted, smoothed, like a system learning to stabilize. Lyra felt it clearly now. The singularity was no longer pushing outward blindly. It was aligning with her, responding to something she had only recently begun to understand. Connection. She looked at the neighbor, at the space they occupied so casually, so imperfectly. At the small routines, the shared moments, the unnecessary but somehow essential interactions. This place is inefficient, she said. Yeah, we've noticed. It is unpredictable, illogical, frequently inconvenient. You're really selling it. And yet, Lyra continued, a faint shift in her voice, something almost like amusement. It is worth maintaining. The air steadied further. Outside, the city moved without hesitation. No pauses, no echoes. Just the quiet persistence of existence continuing as expected. So what happens now? The neighbor asked. Lyra stepped back from the window, the faint shimmer beneath her skin settling into something softer, less erratic. I choose, she said. Choose what? She thought about it, not in the vast, overwhelming way she once could, but in the simple, linear way she had learned here. One thought, then the next. I choose to remain, she said, not because I must, because I want to understand what this becomes. And the universe-breaking thing inside you. It will adapt, Lyra replied. It is learning from me. That's either really good or really bad. Yes, she said, I have reached the same conclusion. The neighbors shook their head, a small smile breaking through their concern. You're unbelievable. I am becoming believable, Lyra corrected. She moved toward the small table, picking up the container of pasta from earlier. She studied it for a moment, then sat down, setting it in front of her with quiet precision. Will you stay? She asked. They hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, I think I will. Good, Lyra said. She took a bite, slower this time, more deliberate. The reaction came, familiar now but deeper. Not just sensation, something closer to understanding. The singularity responded, but gently. No distortions, no fractures. Just a quiet alignment, as if it too had decided something. Outside, the world continued, unaware of how close it had come to being rewritten. Inside, Lyra smiled, slightly delayed, but this time intentionally so. She was learning. And for the first time, so was reality.